And good evening, everybody. Welcome once again to Going nuCLEar, full-blown coverage of the land. I am Ethan Greenberg, and alongside me here, as always, is Madison Delaney. Madison, how are we doing this week? It's Thursday.
Yeah, I guess I never know what day it is in a work week. I feel like I always end some of my calls. Have a good, let me check, a good Thursday. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing all right. I'm really trudging along here, just trying to make it through one day at a time. As we were talking earlier, things seem to blend together, and you don't have the joy yet, or if you ever will, have the joy of having children and having to run around all over the place. You turn into a taxi service of sorts, and then you're trying to remember appointments all over the place. And I don't use my cell phone to all of its capabilities and to the fullest extent. So I'm trying to keep all these things in my head, which is not a good thing at all. I run into problems with that. That's just not the best when it comes to organizing those types of things. So we are trudging through. We are making our way. So that's what's going on this week in the world, not related to sports, as it were.
I did see that Uber will pick up kids under 18 now. So if you need an extra taxi service, I'll put them in an Uber. Don't do it.
Well, what I'd be worried about is they'd ruin my Uber rating.
Probably.
They would. They would annoy the crap out of the driver. My Uber rating would go down. Oh, it would just be horrible. I wouldn't be able to catch a ride when I was in the busy city. You know how popular I am and everything like that. Although I think about that, and isn't it just crazy that you can get a bad Uber rating simply because your personality doesn't mesh with that of the driver? Like, I didn't like this person. I'm going to give them a bad rating because they were talking to me too much. They asked me too many questions. I mean, kind of a interesting system when you think about it. I know I heard a whole argument or discussion about it on Howard Stern and the person's bad Uber ratings and how that can be troublesome when you need to get a ride and you're like in the city. So, yeah, I don't want to screw that up. Not that I'm going anywhere anytime soon. I don't.
You never know. You never know.
Well, I'm not having as much fun as you are, Madison. And you're living it up down there when you're going to Taylor Swift concerts. It's all good. It is all good there. So, yeah, you're having a lot more fun than I am at this juncture. But yeah, it's one of those weeks as per the usual. We are making our way. It is Thursday. And as we were just discussing, not a lot going on, not a lot of action in our Cleveland sports here. Of course, we've got a lot there. There's a lot of backstories and things that we have to look forward to. I think the veteran OTAs are coming up for the Browns. They had their rookie mini camp. And we'll touch on that a little bit here. We did have some Guardians baseball this afternoon. And well, let's start there. Go a little Guardians here. They have not been playing very well. Let's just, I mean, it seems like they are underachieving, but only based upon the fact that they did what they did last year. But then you look at the record, and after 42 games last year, they were 19-23. Amazingly enough, after 42 games this year, 19-23.
Yep.
They managed to win a game today, so I believe that brings them up to 20-23, taking one from the White Sox, avoiding a sweep at the hands of a team that's significantly under 500 and underachieving and has a player who apparently gets on base and can be, lip reading. I believe he said something like, "I hate this effing place," or something along those lines. I think what's really, I don't know about you, but for me, the biggest thing or biggest disappointment for the Guardians this season has certainly been at the plate. We haven't had a ton of injuries. Granted, Jose was out this series on bereavement leave. I believe, if I read correctly, his grandmother passed. He'll rejoin the team in New York when they take on the Mets, and the Mets are not doing well. So this is a golden opportunity for the Guardians to win a few games on the road and build up some momentum. The Guardians, after 42 games, are third from the bottom in hitting average this season. They are hitting 228. And only below them are Seattle and San Diego. And it's just, it may only take a few good games for them to bring their batting average up and move right up to the middle of the pack. I mean, there's some teams that are just above them, barely above them, like Detroit and Oakland and even Minnesota. So it certainly could be something that improves rapidly if they can, get some things going here in the near future. Or hopefully, they get things going in the near future. And obviously, they need to figure it out. They desperately need to figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a danger, right, in knowing like it's the same record as last year and they managed to go on a run. And it's, do you get a little complacent with where you're at? Do you not go after the big bat, which I think everybody is demanding, or a call up for Naylor is the hot topic right now, to bring him up, because obviously we're not getting a lot of hitting from that position. And I mean, it is a danger for sure, because, we've seen them turn a season like this around really, really quickly, and they could very well do it again. But is that enough? Will that take you through the playoffs? And, should you make a move and maybe risk some? I know their culture is like the big thing. They loves each other. They get along, and like bringing someone in is potential risk to that, but it may be time for something like that to happen. You don't want to just get caught kind of sitting on your hands.
That's exactly right. And what I was thinking about, and what I think the local media has talked about. Okay, so first of all, let's take a look at these offensive stats here. We are dead last in runs batted in, 134. We are dead last, 30th in the major leagues. Taking a look at, and the top team, Tampa Bay, 264. Taking a look at RBI, or pardon me, home runs, we are dead last, 23. The next lowest team, Washington, with 28. Triples. I mean, so just looking at the extra base hits, we're not dead last in that. We actually have a few triples. I guess with some of the speed on the base pads, we are actually third in triples. So 9 triples. And taking a look here quickly at the other extra base hits, the doubles, see how far down the list we are on that. And amazingly enough, we are sitting at 22nd with 70 doubles on the season. But the fact that we are so low in so many in the power category, in terms of total hits, we are dead last, one behind the Tigers, only 318 hits on the season. And taking a look here at runs, we are next to last with 147. That's not going to do it. It's not going to cut it. Last year in the playoffs, we got knocked out by the Yankees because we could not go toe-to-toe with them and answer their big bats. And our pitching can only do so much, can only hold up so much. And as much as we may not want to think it, there's an added bit of pressure on these guys to pitch near perfect when they're on the mound, because they know that, hey, we could give up a run and are going to get no run support, and we're going to take the loss. It's really, really bad. So the question then becomes, what do you do? As you mentioned, bringing somebody up in the minors. I don't know what's going to be available in the trade market. Is it going to be one of those things where the Guardians try and turn this thing around, and then when you get near the trade deadline, pick up a bat that way? We've seen them do that before. But I just, for the love of everything I know, cannot figure out why it's been since the mid-90s that the Cleveland baseball team has not been able to come up with a power bat in the lineup out of the farm system. And it's mind-boggling. It baffles me. And so, hitting on that topic, and the awful hitting. Now, behind the plate has been horrific. We thought it was bad last year with Austin Hedges. So we switched to Zunino and we got Cam Gallagher. Amazingly enough, if you didn't see, Cam Gallagher in the win not only got a hit, but batted a run in. So, I mean, well, that was like the first hit in May for anybody in the catcher position for the Guardians. And it is already May the 18th. And that is just sad. That is just pitiful. We could put Sandy Alomar out there and he'd do a better job.
Probably.
You know? So that's not a good thing. So my question is this: as we look at this, we don't want to necessarily hit the panic button. As the standings sit today, or at this moment, taking a look at here, we are 3.5 games behind the Twins, and we haven't lost any ground over the last 10 games. Where both teams are 5-5. And Detroit is also 3.5 out. They've been 5-5 in the last 10. But we've dropped some easy games. We dropped games to Detroit. We dropped games to Chicago. We've got to do better against these teams that are lesser opponents. Let's say we had to play the blame game. Players, coaches, front office. Where do we assign the blame, or most of the blame, for the lack of offensive production that has been a consistent issue year to year over the past few years? I know that the hitters have a responsibility. They've got to do their job and hit the ball.
Right.
But none of them are really power hitters. The coaches, you could talk about the hitting coaches. And what are they doing with these guys to have them prepared on a daily basis when they face X, Y, and Z pitcher? What are they looking for? Why are they not seeing curveballs or whatever ball, pitches with movement? Why are they not seeing those as well? And then, as we said, the front office and their apparent unwillingness to unload prospects to get a bat in this lineup. Now, granted, they did get Josh Bell, but seems like we're missing something here. Where do you go with, if we have to play the blame game, Madison? Where do you see the most of the blame should lie?
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes a little bit on the front office, just because we have this great farm system, but we don't have enough to call them up, but we don't want to give them up in a trade. And it's like, it should be one or the other, right? Either they're ready to come up, and people need time, sure. But if you truly believe in them, you would throw at least a couple of them out there, probably. If you think they're as good as you're saying they are, because you're unwilling to trade them. So in my opinion, especially because it's been a problem for a while, I think it's got to be like front office, because it's not just like this year suddenly we can't hit. Like it's been like this for a while, and it's obviously like a known issue. It's not dissimilar from the Browns. Like, we have issues that we needed to fill, and I think they've mostly done that in the offseason. Did the Guardians? Sort of. I mean, I think they thought they solved it a little bit with Josh Bell, but it's not the whole answer, I don't think. So they need to do something, in my opinion.
Well, here's a good answer for us here. Factory of Status for Life. Good to have you along here. Blame the whole damn city of Cleveland. Hey, we might as well. We might as well. I mean, it's an easy scapegoat to simply blame the whole city. I'm right there with you, because maybe it's the curse, the Cleveland curse on us here. I don't know. I agree with you, Madison. That the front office, obviously, if they're not going to bring in the talent, they're the ones who make the draft decisions. And I know that baseball is a gigantic draft. It's a gigantic crapshoot. You don't see guys immediately come up and play, at the major league level. They got to go through the farm system. And you're like, oh, we drafted that guy. When did we get him? Oh, 5 years ago. Oh, he's finally making it to the big leagues. It's far different than what we see in the NBA and the NFL and even the NHL. When you get a guy who is a top prospect, you're not getting them at 16 years old out of the California Penal League. You're getting them immediately at the top level and out there playing. So all in all, though, like you said, you don't want to get trapped in that false sense of security. Like, hey, we were the same record last year and we pulled a turnaround. They've got to do something. It's not sustainable. Even if they were to come out of the AL Central, what is that going to do? What is that going to do when you're facing a team that starts mashing? And Tampa Bay is mashing. They are 19-3 at home. I mean, that's pretty incredible to be 19-3 at home. And I think that they're going to be troublesome for most teams, most opponents in the American League. And Guardians have some work to do. And I don't know where the answer lies. I think that, they may have to give up some arms to bring in some bats. I would certainly like to see the days, at least some semblance of the mid-90s of the Tommy Ramirez Bell trio. Even when we had David Justice and Juan Gonzalez, those, they could do some hitting. And going back further than that, Joe Carter, Corey Snyder, and Mel Hall. Those are some names that you may or may not know, as they were long. Yeah, and what's funny, you in talking about the Guardians, the Indians from back in the day, and bringing up, as I bring up or mention Joe Carter and Mel Hall, is people talking about the crowd in Oakland. That's what it looked like essentially at Indians games at the old Municipal Stadium on a Tuesday night in April or in May or heck, even in June. It was brutal. I mean, thank goodness they ended up getting the new stadium. And here's an idea: live chickens. They need live chickens. I keep telling them that Jobu needs a refill, and we need hats for bats. But no one is listening to the Pedro Serrano theory on how to bring the bats to life. So that's the daggone Guardians here. I don't even know. They're a frustrating bunch to watch, and I guess it's fortunate that I don't get to watch them very much. I don't know about you. Do you have the MLB package, or do you just follow along and check the score?
I don't. I'll consider, but I want to make them earn it first, I think. Let them get some wins under their belt.
Very fair. Very fair. But yeah, I mean, and quite frankly, if I get to listen to them, it's just as good or just as pleasurable listening as it is watching, because Tom Hamilton is so good. Some of these announcers are not so good. And so, it's tough to think about spending extra money on the baseball. If I were local, that's another story. But according to Factory of Sadness, don't waste your money or time. But I will say this: at least the games are faster this year. So we got that going for us. We do have that going for us. So moving on, in kind of entertainment news, did you see that they are talking about bringing back, and it's going to happen, bringing back the EA Sports NCAA college football? Where they're going to sign a deal, have name, image, and likeness. And then there's dynasty mode and so on and so forth. And I don't know, are you a big video game player, Madison?
Not so much anymore. I used to be, and I definitely had some roommates who did Dynasty on NCAA football previously. They repped ODU of all schools, Old Dominion.
Well, you were in Virginia, and hey, that's pretty cool. It's kind of like me, I guess playing with Kent State or something along those lines. And everyone's all excited about this, but quite frankly, I'm not as excited as other people. And the reason being, there's no competition. Yeah, it'll be great having people agreeing to have their name, image, and likeness, and having your favorite Duke, North Carolina, Ohio State players out there, and you're like, all right, yeah, this is great. But the fact of the matter is, it's just like Madden, in that Madden has no competition and hasn't had any competition since 2K stopped making its football, its football game. And so they have no reason to really, really improve the gameplay. And that's sad. That's really a sad state of affairs. So, are you excited? I mean, well, as you said, you don't play as much video games, but would you be anticipating this game coming out, or to the average gamer of our age, are we going to be like, meh?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not personally necessarily excited for my own sake. I know people who are excited for the players to get a little bit of that back with their name, image, and likeness. So that's exciting. But I do wonder if in like this dynasty mode and things like that, are they going to have the transfer portal like they have it currently? Is it going to be a free for all, like free agency basically, in the professional leagues? I'm interested to see about that. I'd love to know how they navigate that particularly sticky situation.
It'll be very interesting to see what happens and what they allow them to do. That may be the hook. That type of thing might be the hook that gets people to play. They create this thing with the transfer portal, and they take the guy from such and such a school and plop him down in whatever else other school. That sort of thing. Speaking of transfer portals, I know I'm kind of all over the place here, but I saw Caleb Love. Am I getting it? The North Carolina player? He goes into the transfer portal, leaves North Carolina, and he committed to Michigan, and now he's back out. He's like, nah, I'm out.
Oh, did
I'm
he
back.
commit?
I thought he had. I thought he had, but he's back out now.
We had another one who I think he committed to like Hawaii or something, and he committed. But I have not heard that about Caleb Love, so that's interesting. I like Caleb Love. He got a lot of flack at Carolina. Kind of pushed him into a role that wasn't specifically his, that best suited him.
Right.
I wish him the best. Good luck to Caleb, wherever he lands. Not Duke, though. Please, not in the ACC. I'd prefer not.
That's never good. It's like seeing going to a division rival, going to a conference rival. That is not something that you want to see.
The guy that did the U down that is now transferring to Miami.
Oy vey. Oy vey. And speaking of things, talking about other teams in your conference, in your division prospering, that brings me around to our Cavaliers. It's the off season. We're not playing. We're having to sit at home and watch the remainder of the playoffs because we took a dump against the Knicks, to put it politely. And the NBA draft lottery was a couple of nights ago, and the San Antonio Spurs are going to be picking number 1. And the only reason I'm happy about that is that, I mean, the Pistons, I believe were in line. They could have gotten the number 1 pick, and they end up dropping out of the top 4, and they plop down in the 5th. So I am definitely happy that an Eastern Conference team did not land the number 1 pick, and now we don't have to play Wembanyama more than twice a year. And right here, Factory of Sadness. Did I call it first round exit? Yeah. Factory of Sadness here. He called it. I'm not gonna lie. He did in fact call it, but of course, most of his takes are kind of negative. They're realistic. They are based in reality for sure. Definitely based in reality, but a little bit negative. So the Victor Wembanyama thing, and as you and I were chatting, I wonder, well, first of all, who would you compare him to in, past, present NBA players with that height and that length and just his general skills? Is there anybody?
It's a really hard thing to do, I think. I mean, he's not really like anyone. I feel like he really is kind of his own. I will stand firmly on the fact that I hate crowning people before they've made it to the league. Like, I do not like that. But obviously he's done well, overseas. So you have that. He can shoot, he can drive. I mean, he's got handles for his size. I mean, 7'5", that's crazy. And defensively, he's great. So it is kind of what it is. Like, he's just his own person. He's a combo of probably a lot of different players, I think is the fairest way to say it.
So Factory of Sadness in a rebuttal, 100% reality and facts, in their opinion. But yeah, he is his own guy. And it was just crazy. I mean, we discussed this the other night, the fact that they tried to maintain some type of mystery when in past years of the draft lottery, especially with LeBron James. They tried to maintain like, oh, we don't know. It could be Darko Milicic. Yeah. That's a joke. It could have been Carmelo Anthony, or it could have been LeBron. I am thankful that the Cavs actually did the right thing that time and chose LeBron James, much better than some of our other number one picks, a la Anthony Bennett. Anthony stinking Bennett. What?
An all-time bad pick.
That was horrific. I mean, where did they come up with this guy?
Can't explain it.
No,
would never.
No,
never try.
It's inexplicable. It is absolutely inexplicable that they did that. But not. I think within the past week or so, the good luck charm for the Cavs at those draft lottery shows or whatever was the son of Cavs owner Dan Gilbert. That was Nick Gilbert. And he was just, he died. He was only 26. And he had neurofibromatosis. And that's tough. And so, his bow tie was an inspiration, lucky charm for the Cavs. And I believe they did some stuff, charity work and a foundation, money for that. And I hope they continue to honor his tradition going forward. But another thing we were talking about is I think about and I'm just weird like this. These crazy thoughts come into my head. I think about foreign athletes and their ability to kindly curse out officials unbeknownst to them. They could speak in whatever their native tongue is. And if they do it with a straight face, generally the official's not going to know. I mean, wouldn't that be nice? Whereas if you're here in the U.S. or your native country and you want to say F you to the official, wouldn't it be nice to be in another country and smile and nod at them and say it in a different language that they didn't understand? I think that'd be kind of nice.
Yeah, I might actually flip that back on you. And do you think we have some TV officials look up these words in foreign languages so they know when they're being cursed out?
Oh, tough call. We're going to need to get some officials on the line here. I'm going to have to call up, some of our NBA officials, whoever the lead person is, or maybe I'll call up Gene Steratore. He seems to know it all. He knows football. Apparently, he was basketball. Steratore knows it all. I'd like to get his opinion on the thing. Maybe he might know it. Is Steratore maybe, do you think, and I'm just basing this on his name, do you think he might have like an Italian background?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I'm terrible at knowing origins of names.
Yeah, here's one that I often like. Puparushka. It's all Puparushka. And that's a good one. I would yell some Puparushka. I would think about, cursing in Yiddish or something, and they wouldn't know what it is. I'd like to start a segment here where we talk insulting in Yiddish, Yiddish for dummies. And so that you too can go out into your local community and curse at somebody and talk badly about them without them knowing. It's a beauty. It is a beauty. But some things going on here for the Cavs that we didn't get to touch on last week. Last week, of course, we had our big schedule breakdown, played the schedule game for the Browns as the NFL released their schedule last Thursday evening. Evan Mobley, as much as people kind of crapped on him for the playoff performance, he was named NBA first team all defense, second youngest player to Kobe Bryant to earn the first team honors. The only other Cavs first team defense players were Larry Nance Sr. and LeBron. And the last player to make all defensive team in their first or second year was Tim Duncan. And the last player in their first and second year to make the first team all defense prior to that, I guess, was a person by the name of Don Busey in 1976. I mean, that's a long time ago. So obviously, Evan Mobley going forward is a key piece to the Cavs development. If you were his coach, what would you tell him to be working on in the off season?
Yeah, I mean, I think he knows it. I know I got a little frustrated on Twitter by Kobe Altman praising him for having gym equipment in his own house, like he's not a professional athlete. But I mean, he obviously needs to get stronger. I don't want to discount it. Get a lot stronger from year to second year. But he's still very wiry. Like he just has that kind of frame. And if you look at Giannis over the same time period, it's about the same kind of trajectory. And if you can put on muscle like Giannis put on, like, in a couple of years, it doesn't just happen overnight. If you're not taking drugs to help with it. But that's obviously his biggest thing, that and developing a 3-point shot. Like he has a chance to be better shooting the ball from the outside than Giannis. His form looks good. He didn't shoot great from three. He looked okay at a couple points. But that improve, and as he gets stronger, that potentially helps with that. But you would like to see him taking the ease and making them with ease. But obviously, I think number one on everyone's mind, given how we got handled in the playoffs, is just to add some muscle.
Right. I mean, it's so much. It's one of those things where he's very young, and he only has played 2 seasons in the NBA. And the amount of changes that your body goes through at that age is incredible. He might have reached his limit or where he's going to be in terms of height, but he's going to fill out. He's got to hit the gym. He's got to fill out, got to eat right, to do so. And hopefully he takes that next step because they've got to have that. They have absolutely got to have that. In other news, Donovan Mitchell, who the Cavs, they traded the farm for him. He gets named second team All NBA. I believe his response on Twitter was FOH for, get the F out of here. And do you think that now granted, I know there's a lot of guards and and so on and so forth, but do you think that he landed where he probably should have landed in terms of the All NBA teams?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to bump. I know people were upset because Luka got bumped up, I think, but and they didn't make the playoffs, obviously, or whatever. But it's hard to make an argument against any of the people that made first team. I think everyone's pretty deserving. They had good numbers. And I definitely don't feel like that's a hill I'm willing to do after the playoff performance that we had. But regular season, obviously he was great. I expect he would be great in probably any series, not against the Knicks. For whatever reason, it just got, I think, in his head more than he expected it, frankly, in the series. So, we'll see how it goes. I think it's his first All NBA team. So it's good for him, a good accomplishment. to work for to make first team next year.
Right. Well, it's always good to have goals, things to strive for individually and as well as part of the bigger picture, your team and how you want to progress. And looking at where the progression might be, um, for the Cavs here, we might have to look at. I know it's not popular, but this is a results driven business. Sports are results driven. It's about the wins and the losses. First of all, want to, as Factory of Sadness says, championships not won in the regular season. And he's right. I mean, we needed to do more in the playoffs. That was not good. And that was more that wasn't that was on everybody. That was on the players and that was on JB and so on and so forth. And to that end, um, we have seen already, I mean, high profile coaches fired. Nick Nurse, Mike Budenholzer, and Doc Rivers, all championship coaches. Gandhi. They are gone. I mean, Doc Rivers, arguably, he got one trophy out of, a great core of Allen, Pierce, and Garnett. I know they ran into, they ran into Kobe. LA was pretty darn tough, but I think he underachieved with what they built there, and he never quite hit it in with the Clippers, and in Philadelphia, that's a disappointment there. That really is to have. You got your MVP, Joel Embiid. Now, granted, he was kind of banged up there, but he seems to be banged up every year. Yep. And then you got Harden, and the weight of his beard is keeping him down. It's kind of ridiculous there. And Nick Nurse overachieved in Toronto, getting the championship over the Warriors. And obviously that Klay Thompson injury played a role in that, but they had a good game plan. They had a very good game plan. And Mike Budenholzer, I don't know if they won because of him or despite him in Milwaukee, because he certainly had some good teams in Atlanta, and then they got trounced by the Cavs in the playoffs and LeBron. So it's a results-driven league. So let me ask you this. If we look at those coaching firings, what do you think the Cavs are going to expect out of JB Bickerstaff? And we're saying this assuming there's no catastrophic injuries where you're losing, Garland, Mitchell, and Mobley, or so, for lengthy periods of time, or Allen for something along those lines. Where do you think he's got to get to assure that they don't say enough? We're going to move on to somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, you certainly have to win more than a playoff game. that is for sure. You definitely need to win a series. I don't know that they would absolutely move on unless we got outright embarrassed in like a second round, something like that. And it was a pretty glaringly obvious coaching flaw. Just because I think they're trying to put some stability into the organization. They don't unless they really have to. But I mean, in my opinion, like, you have the talent. I think this season even kind of proved it. Like, you never know what's going to happen from like top to bottom. Like, Giannis being out for some games really took a toll on them. And then you would have potentially an opportunity there. Obviously teams have played well that are lower seeds. But it's one of those things, like, you have to win at the end of the day, and like getting close but not all the way there is just not good enough at this point. And it is, I saw someone on Twitter, I think, I can't remember who, but someone said something about it being almost more timing a coach than having like a great coach. And I know some people want to try to like pry Spo away from the Heat. Like, that's just, it's not happening. Like, you can put that away. No matter what kind of money, Dan Gilbert could offer him, he won't. I don't think he'll leave Miami. And so, maybe you need to take a chance on some people if that's, what you're thinking, and try to find the right guy and strike gold. But if you miss, then that sets you back several years. So if you make a move, it has to be the right one, and it's a pretty fine line to walk.
Definitely. I mean, we've seen guys that have had their moments and have been good for short stints, and then overall just can't pull it off. Look at Mike D'Antoni. I mean, he's been incredibly successful in multiple places and just can't get over the top. Rick Adelman, for back in the day for the Trailblazers and then for the Kings, I mean, unfortunately ran into, roadblocks there. When he was with the Trailblazers, they were dealing with the Pistons and the Bulls. And then for the Kings, they were running into the Lakers. Guys like that have had incredible runs, just haven't been able to get over the top. So you never know. Like you said, sometimes it is about the timing. Really, absolutely is. So for the Cavs going into the offseason, and again, we've got another month of basketball or something along those lines here before this thing is over. Have you looked at, or what are you thinking about some free agent targets to shore up the bench? Because I think 1 through 4, we got pretty good top end talent.
Yeah, I mean, I've looked at it a bit. I don't know that there's any move we can make in free agency unless you throw like a lot of money at a guy. I mean, it's just LeBron couldn't recruit free agents here. Like, I don't know why we think like Mitchell will necessarily. So I'm worried in that respect. I mean, I would love like a Cam Johnson, who we talked about, who's restricted, I think. Someone like that. I honestly think you're probably going to have to make another splash trade if you want to improve on the wing. These guys are they're so hard to find, a 3-and-D wing like that everybody claims they want, that seems to be such an easy find. And part of it is just like they get hot at the right time. Like Josh Hart is a guy that like people wanted, but he shot horrendously through most of the season up until he got traded to New York. And then he probably increased by like 10 percentage points. Like, it was crazy, his jump when he got there. And sometimes you just get hot at the right time. But yeah, I mean, in my opinion, I think the only person that I would not put up in a trade offer, I mean, depending on who it is, but I think you've got a lot of disgruntled stars, people that aren't happy with where they are. They're not, happy with losing. Obviously it's tough to win in this league, and a lot of teams lost. The only one I'm not trading, I think, like I would put everybody up. I would include Mitchell in that potentially. Only because of the rumors that he wants to go to New York anyways. If that's the case, then I don't need a rental. Like, go get what you can for him. He just had a career year. And I don't think that's necessarily true. I mean, maybe it is. Who wants to not play, New York compared to Cleveland, I guess. But he's only valuable for so long before he loses that value. So if that's the move he wants to make, then you have a little bit of trade value there. It's not necessarily the move I would want to make, but it's an offer that you could make for a guy who could make a difference potentially. So we'll see what they do. I think it could be an interesting option. I'm hoping we make a move or two, at least in the trade market, and we'll see what we can get on free agency. But I'm a little skeptical that we're going to answer all our problems there.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Maybe, do you think that Philadelphia is going to break up the band? They get rid of Rivers, and apparently Harden isn't going to, just stay with them. He wants to get a big contract, and he might be playing himself out of some money.
Yeah, he's an interesting one, that's for sure. I mean, he played well in spurts and then just totally. And I mean, we should really talk about Embiid's comments after that series. I'm glad that was worse than anything any of the Cavs said. That we need everybody else to step up. We went 8 for 28 from the field between him and Harden. That's crazy.
Yeah, that was terrible. That was just terrible. I mean, they did not show up in a game 7. They blew a game 6. Had an opportunity to close out in game 6, didn't do it, and then didn't show up in Game 7 and handed it to Boston. That was embarrassing, absolutely embarrassing, and that was just the icing on the cake. They might have not have been ready to get rid of Doc Rivers, but then that happened, and they're like, "All right, you're out. You get out of
Yeah.
here." And who knows? Maybe Toronto will be looking to make some moves. I would love, what about a guy like Anunoby?
Yeah. I
You
mean, they
know,
were
no,
rumored during the season to want him, I think, if memory serves.
well, I like Kobe Altman, so let's see what the Cavaliers do this offseason. I'm also curious. I don't know if you saw it. I'd want to get down to the Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse, check out the brand new open team shop. They were working on it when I was there, and it wasn't officially open, but it looks like a beaut. It looks
Yeah.
like a beauty. So I definitely want to check that out. And I definitely urge people, get up there. It is a good time, a great scene to watch some basketball. So one other thing from the world of the NBA. First of all, we've got the Eastern Conference, Western Conference finals going on. Last night, the Celtics blow a double-digit lead to the Heat. And you talked about Spoelstra, and he really knows how to pull the right strings. He has got those guys playing pretty darn well. And then over in the Western Conference, the Lakers, and who got in via the play-in, and the same with the Heat, they got in via the play-in against the number 1 seed Nuggets. Nuggets looking to reach their first ever NBA Finals. Jokic is not elegant, or maybe
Yeah.
it's not pretty,
Right.
but he's darn good.
Yeah,
He
he's
is
effective. That's for sure.
he is very effective. And I'm certain. I don't know. I know that we talked about that. And you'd like to see LeBron win another title,
I do,
and
yeah.
I wouldn't be against that, given the other teams that are still in this thing. But man, they've got a tough hill to climb against the Nuggets, because it's got it. LeBron is really, again, relying on role players to step up at the right time. How many teams can this guy drag through the playoffs to get to a finals, to be near a finals? I mean, what he did in Cleveland for, those first few years and getting to that first championship run, unreal. I mean,
Yeah.
he had to get classic performances, all-time performances from Boobie Gibson, and Eric Snow. I mean, this is ridiculous. Wow. The lack of talent we had on those teams to go alongside of LeBron is just almost unfathomable, and is a real credit to what LeBron has done in his career. But I almost got off the topic here and skipped this, unintentionally. Ja Morant, that guy's got some maturing to do. And he's got to understand, in my opinion, what where he is in his career, and what type of work he's doing. Did you hear the rant that JJ Redick went on?
I did not hear it explicitly, but I saw a little bit about it.
Yeah, and I know he's talking about people who are like public figures and in politics and this, that, and the other. Well, this is a different story. He's in the NBA. He's got a reputation. It's just, I think that none of these people should be fooling around and posing with guns or messing around with them. Believe it or not, they're dangerous. They do, in fact, whether intentional or not, they can kill you. And this guy's walking around and flashing a gun just months after getting in trouble for essentially the same thing. And I'm going to be curious to see what the punishment is from the NBA. Because I bet Adam Silver feels like he got duped.
Yeah. I get JJ's point, like it's not illegal technically, but like if he's trying to do that on camera, he's doing much worse off camera, in my opinion. And I mean, it's not even about the legality of it. Like he's about to throw his whole life away for something that he doesn't like. It doesn't matter. Like you have everything you could want at this point. Like don't go throw it out the window because you want to appear like you're tough, like whatever it is that he wants to do. So it's about him and like, I mean, regardless of again the legality of it and like whether you can own a gun, that's fine. But like also he just needs to be smart. Like he's still, I mean, he's still young, doesn't necessarily know better. Like someone needs to help him on this journey so that he does not ruin his life. And I think that's the goal. So I don't know what they'll do suspension wise. I'm sure something. I mean, he's suspended from team activities now. It's the off season for them. Who cares? And what they do in the regular season, we'll see. But I mean, something needs to be done to send him a pretty clear message. And I hope he does get help because it would suck to throw your entire life out the window again for something that doesn't really matter.
Right. And it's all about, this is who your employer is. If they create a rule and a standard,
right,
then you have to abide by that. It's the moronic thing about the NFL in the age of, or they, and this is previously the age of using marijuana and looking at Josh Gordon and that sort of thing. It's tough to see young people do things that are going to negatively impact their career, and for what? And for what? I mean, it's not. I think someone needs to just remind this kid, this guy, this is not a toy. You don't need to be a tough guy. There's just no point in doing what you're doing out there. You gotta have a level head. And as we discussed before, of course, the reason that the Miami Heat are winning is, in fact, Kevin Love. I mean, clearly the Cavs would have won had they kept Kevin Love.
Only.
Yeah, if only. So taking a look here for the Browns last week after the schedule comes out. Now, of course, everyone does their rankings, and the Browns, quite frankly, are not ranked that high after the draft, after free agency, but they did make a move, a number of moves. The last Friday, they pick up Zadarius Smith from Minnesota. And, I've heard some negative comments about him that have been flying around social media as he has been through a few teams. He was in Minnesota last. Before that, he was with Green Bay. And prior to that, he spent 4 seasons with Baltimore. This guy had 2 monster seasons with Green Bay. In 2019, he racked up 13 and a half sacks. And in 2020, he racked up 12 and a half sacks. And last year, before he got injured, he had 9.5, ended up with 10 sacks. And he played 16 games last season, despite having the knee, whatever was going on with his knee. How do you think he will fare and will pair up with Myles Garrett and the rest of the defensive line?
Yeah. I mean, I think our second leading in sacks, like 4 or 3 or something like that?
3 or 4. It was awful.
Yeah.
It was
something really abysmal. So, I mean, obviously you're bringing in a guy, I think, who can, especially when you have your choice of who you're going to double, like you're going to double Myles Garrett all day. I don't think there's a question of that. So like you're pulling a double and then he gets to go one-on-one probably more than he's really ever gotten to go in most of his career, probably. So that helps, certainly, especially kind of pairing with some of the moves we made on the interior, picking up some guys in free agency, some guys in the draft. So hopefully we're a little better there. And then you add in I can't remember what we call him, Obeezy, because I can't say his full name.
Ogbonnia Okoronkwo.
Yes, him. You've got him rotating in, and you can kind of fill one in on the interior line with, any one of those three in sure pass situations. So I feel good about the move. I get people want to talk about like his locker room presence and things like that. I think Mary Kay was on like 92.3 The Fan today saying like, his money's guaranteed. That's not going to be a problem this year. And he gets to go wherever next year if he plays well. He gets a big contract. It's great for everybody, right? Because he's getting sacks for us, leads to a big payday for him. If we can't keep him, it is what it is. We didn't give up a ton for him, so I think it's a win-win. I don't really get the locker room talk. I do think because his contract's guaranteed, so hopefully it does pan out and more than 4 sacks alongside Myles Garrett this year.
Definitely. And if they can get any pressure out of the front four, that is going to make life so much easier for the defensive backfield, for the linebackers. We've got a run stuffer up there now because we've added, 2 players from Minnesota. We've added Dalvin Tomlinson and we have added Zadarius Smith. So I think that fares well. That bodes well. At least they have addressed what was a glaring need right there. You talked about free agent pickups, and we were talking about this before. Juan Thornhill goes out on Twitter and gets into it a little bit with some of the fans. And, I got to say, like, I don't mind it. I don't mind it at all. Because, quite frankly, I'd rather see someone who's going to be positive and have a positive winning attitude, rather than come in and be like, well, yeah, you're right. This team has sucked. It has sucked. It has sucked the life out of people. But he comes in and he's like, hey, I'm all good. He's saying, if you aren't all the way in with us this year, then peace. It's all, at hashtag dog pound. Then he comes back and says, if y'all can't tell, I'm tired of the negativity and I've only been here for 3 weeks. We will win this year 100. And lastly, but not leastly, he says, I don't care about what happened any year before I got here. New era. Sure. He's not the only guy to ever say that.
Right. Yeah.
Really is. He's not the first guy and won't be the last guy. But I don't know about you, but I'd rather have that guy than the guy who comes in and doesn't have any aspirations or any energy to say, hey, we're going to make this team a winner. One way or we are going to do this. I'd much rather see the positivity. And
fair. I feel like I can trust it a little more because Schwartz is the DC now, and I feel like he's proven himself in enough places that I want to believe Juan Thornhill a little bit more. But to your point, he is certainly not the first to say like, whatever. Like I think Jarvis kind of famously said that, right? And
yes.
we did get to the playoffs, so kudos to him, I guess. But we want to go a little further than that.
Definitely, but it is good for the culture to have guys who are coming in here. He's coming from a winning team. He knows what it takes to win. I like that. He's got a winning attitude. You got to think positively. You can't constantly be negative. Speaking of negative, we draft DeJuan Jones in like the 4th round or something. Or third, I believe did we get him in the 3rd round or the 4th round? I don't know if I have my notes here about where we got him. DeJuan Jones, we picked him up, offensive tackle from Ohio State, 4th round of the NFL draft. And he's this massive, massive piece of humanity to come in and compete for the offensive line. And I see what people are writing about him and why he slipped down the draft board. But again, I understand that there's stories, and he kind of debunked some of them. I don't know if he helped himself in the pre-draft process or not. But for goodness sakes, why are all these journalists, are they simply looking for clicks that they can't be positive about anything or at least try to dig into the story before they write a stupid headline?
Yeah, I mean, it is about clicks. It's like that
I
is
mean,
the
I know,
biggest of
I
it.
know it is, but it's a bad day for journalism. There is no
Yeah,
journalism. The number of articles and things I see online that are complete nonsense and is all editorial and takes something somebody said and then you just write your opinion on it. That's not reporting. That's editorializing. It's not reporting. Go out, dig into the story, see if what was being said was true. Like he responded on Twitter or whatever it was, basically saying, yeah, that ain't right,
yeah,
essentially, to paraphrase. But yeah, apparently it was a rough, and the narrative, with that narrative in mind, that first day at rookie minicamp, he was getting worked hard. In fact, even down, with trainers on a knee, and apparently he was tossing some cookies, which might speak to his level of conditioning. And that's people who want to be negative are going to take that in the negative. But from what I read, and then thankfully, just read a piece by Mary Kay, and it sounded like he did better over the following day or two, with a little bit cooler temperatures. But certainly, it's reason for concern if he's not in shape. But why the negative narrative here?
yeah. I mean, there's plenty of time in shape, right? Like it's not in season. I feel like, I mean, your rookies, I feel like you would hope would be in shape for rookie, mini camp. But like your vets probably are not. Like I feel like there were a handful of guys down in Puerto Rico shirts on for the photo op specifically for that reason. Because I mean, like Baker even before we obviously let him go, but Baker even would be kind of concerning a bit in the off season, but then he would really kind of shred down right before, like they know what they need to do to get in shape for the season. And you hope the case here. Obviously, we're not, I don't think expecting him to start right away in any capacity. He's kind of filling a backup role. So I think for that reason, I'm not too concerned. Hopefully he has time to kind of like learn what it means to be a pro. I'm a little bit tired of taking chances on guys that need to learn what it's like to be a pro, but here we are. So, he's got the size. So hopefully we can, get the attitude turned around and keep him focused.
Well, I will say this. In on the positive side of things, trying to look at the glasses half full. It's an offensive lineman working with Bill Callahan. Look what
Yeah.
he has done with late round picks
Yeah.
and made them into superstars. Batonio wasn't an early round pick. I'm trying to think of some of the other guys we've had come through that were not early picks that
Yeah.
he has made flourish in their careers. And so I feel good about that. So I bit the bullet, Madison, and I purchased the NFL Sunday ticket on YouTube TV. I
There you
made
go.
the commitment, because I think June 6th is the deadline for getting it at a slight discount. I think $100 off.
Yeah.
It ain't cheap, and I'm hoping it works. After last night, apparently there were some issues during the Celtics and Heat game for some YouTube viewers. They better have that figured out before NFL
I
season.
can personally assure you many, many less views than what you would have had on the DirecTV NFL ticket streaming option. Because
All right.
God forbid, I tried to reset a password and it reset for an account that I didn't even have anymore and I could not get in, and it's a phone call. It's 3 hours on the phone. Like it was a mess. TV will not be that. I can tell you that. I've had it. We still have it. I actually recently got Fubo though. My parents took over YouTube, so now we got best of both worlds.
Hey, excellent choice, an excellent choice there. All right, so I think that about covers it for the Browns. As we said, they're in Puerto Rico with Deshaun Watson. They've got the veteran, the what is it, the voluntary off-season OTAs coming up.
Mm-hmm.
So, we shall see what they do. I'm glad to see the team building. I know some people made a joke or, kind of joking about them being down in Puerto Rico in the videos they showed on Instagram. But you know what? I think they're getting in. They might be doing something. Maybe that was all for show. Hopefully, they're getting in some work. Hopefully, they're building the chemistry. Because it was evident when there were guys that didn't have chemistry with the quarterback, how bad it could look.
Yeah.
A la Odell and Baker, and
Yeah.
most of the receivers in Baker. He had much better chemistry with the opposing defenses on most games, Christmas Eve, and things of that nature.
Yep.
So with that, we didn't have this last week, so let's return it this week. Time for a little yay or oy vey. So Madison, I was at the store a couple weeks ago at the grocery store, and I'm looking in the chip aisle, and the amount of varieties of chips, the flavors they've got going on are crazy. I'm thinking to myself, who in their right mind is picking up this bag of chips? Why are they making this so complicated? Stick to the originals. They work for a reason. They've been around for a long time for a reason. Once with always putzing with the flavors. And then what they do is they have limited shelf space. They put all these crazy flavors out for display, and then you can't even find just the regular ones. I know that happens in the cereal aisle. Golly. Get off my lawn. I'm old guy. Get off my lawn. Let me stick to the originals here. So with that in mind, saw some flavors of Doritos, and I'd like your opinion, yay or oy vey here. The first one we're going to go with, I actually found, I had to look it up online. This wasn't in the store, but I looked this up online. There's a hot sauce you might find in Mexican restaurants. You might see it's not Cholula with the wooden cap. It's called Tapatio or Tapachio. It's white with a red cap on it. But essentially, if you needed an idea, it's like Cholula or Melinda's, I think is another brand. Just that basic salt, red, kind of a little bit of spice that you might get there. Yeah. Tapachio flavored Doritos, yay or oy vey?
I love hot sauce, so I will go yay for sure, which reminds me, I need to add hot sauce to my grocery list. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm always glad to remind somebody of something they need to get at the grocery store because, gosh darn it, I hate it when I go to the grocery store and then realize I have left something off the list, and then I got to drag my tuchus back out there. But you know what? I'm actually with you. I would be willing to try the Tapachio flavored. I think that's not a terrible idea. I've certainly seen worse, and we're going to get to it. Next flavor of Doritos, yay or oy vey, hot mustard Doritos.
I feel I would try it. So I guess if I would try it, I'll go yay. I have not had them, so I cannot speak on them, but I would try it. I'd say yay.
So, okay, you go yay. I'm going to go a very much an oy vey on that. I just don't see hot mustard as a good flavor of a variety of a chip. Yeah, I mean, I like mustard on my hot dog, and I like different varieties of mustard, but I'm going to go oy vey on that. Last one, and this is kind of like an ode, I think almost an ode to Canada. Tangy ketchup flavor Doritos.
No, that's an oy vey for me. No, thank you.
Yeah, I'm also going to go oy vey. I'm not ketchup flavored chip guy. I'm going to go oy vey and ask the Doritos, please stick to your delicious nacho cheese flavor. The Cool Ranch are always good. They've struck gold on some of those flavors. Don't overdo it. Don't overdo it. I think that's it. So that is it for our yay or oy vey segment here. And now it comes to that time of the show. It is, in fact, that time to talk about what has us going nuclear this week. Madison, I know you've had some work concerns, some things going on at the office.
Yeah.
What has you going nuclear this week?
We will go away from the office for once. Right now, it's just the WNBA not getting out of their own way. I feel like they're not capitalizing on opportunities presented from like the NCAA Final Four taking off in terms of ratings and star power and things like that. Like they're cutting first round picks left and right because they have these rosters. They don't have enough teams. It is one of the hardest leagues to make just because of the limited number of teams and spots available. I think like the 2021 draft, there's like 4 people left from the first round on a roster still. It's just like it's brutal out there. And I've been watching, I don't know if anyone's seen it, but I've watched the documentary that's out on Angel City for the NWSL. So that's the Women's Professional Soccer League. Got all the actors and actresses backing it. It's got Serena's husband who started whatever he started, that he has all the money. I can't pronounce his name, Otani or whatever. But he's got all to back it. And like they're running their team like a startup, right? And it's like a very different mindset than I feel like any other professional team has. And it's gotten them to lead the NWSL in attendance. And like, that's the type of stuff. And I mean, I do get like they have the star power. So like, sure, you could say some people are going to games just to see like a couple of celebrities, whatever. But they're doing the right things and making adjustments as needed, and every do, really well with attendance, try to beat it. And like, that's the kind of stuff that I don't feel like you're getting in the WNBA. Like they're just not doing it. Like they're not honoring the players in a way that they should to grow the game in a way that they could based off of the success of NCAA play. And then to top that, the NCAA put out a tweet that there's no basketball until like October or whatever the NCAA starts. I'm like, okay, you have a whole WNBA season. But that's another thing, and I'm just upset about all of it. I'm like, you guys need to work together to make this grow for everyone, because the NCAA's players turn into WNBA players, and that grows both sides. So I just wish they would do better. That's my soapbox for today.
Hey, that's a good one, and I completely hear you on it. And you talk about where are these women going to go play? Remember we talked to Trevor Huffman and him talking about his experience in Europe and the shady places you have to go to get a paycheck. I mean, why shouldn't we be able to support a league for women? It's really amazing how much time it takes for things to evolve, and we've come a long way. But yeah, they definitely need to support it, especially showing what they did in the NCAA tournament and the popularity and the viewership and the crowds. It was fantastic. It really was. Thank you for your thoughts there, Madison, on what has you going nuCLEar this week. So for me, what has me going nuCLEar, something that's had me going nuCLEar for a while, and it's posts on Facebook, it's posts on Twitter. I refer to it as cryptic tweets, cryptic messages. If you want to say something, say it. Okay? Enough with the beating around the bush thing. If you got something to say it. I don't like this idea of like, well, what are they talking about? What are they, what's it? Keep it. Hey, remember, keep an eye on Josh Rosen.
Yeah.
Was that Josina Anderson? Keep an eye on Josh.
So, yeah.
On Josh Rosen. I mean, what is this nonsense? If you don't actually know something, don't say it. If you do know something and you're not supposed to say something, don't put it out there. It's pretty simple. And then, along those lines, if you're just a regular person, don't put things out there to just because you want someone to ask you what's going on.
Zeke
Elliott. It's one of those things. I know it's a new age and it's a new way to communicate for people, and it's still evolving. But again, enough with the cryptic tweets. I give me a break, folks. I think that it's wonderful that we have all this communication and ability to be connected to our stars, our public officials, whatever it is. But enough of the cryptic tweets, enough of the cryptic posts on Facebook, people. And that, a lot of that's the regular people, because you're friends with, whomever you're friends with, and they post something weird on there. Worst day ever. And they, and it's like ... And you're like, what happened? What happened? Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Did someone die? Did you have an accident? What happened? I ran out of deodorant this morning. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what ridiculousness it could be, but enough with the cryptic tweets and the cryptic posts. That is what has me going nuclear this week. Folks, I want to thank you all for tuning in. Madison, thank you as always. Excellent job. Again, that we are presented by Buzz Sports CLE. You can follow the show on Twitter at Going nuCLEar CLE. Please check us out, subscribe, share, let your friends know when the program is coming on. We are working on getting some guests in here, talk some Guardians, talk some other things, college sports. Want to hopefully touch on the landscape of college sports, the Big Ten, the USC, Bronny James, things of that nature. But we're chasing down a few guests here, and hopefully we'll be able to get some people in here soon, as the Guardians aren't giving us much to talk about. And well, we've got a few months until the Browns season kicks off in Canton in the Hall of Fame game. So for Madison Delaney, I am Ethan Greenberg, and you have been watching Going nuCLEar, full-blown coverage of the land.